Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I think, are you up first here? Yeah. Okay. Very handsome.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening. I'm Mayor Lorraine West, and I truly want to thank you for joining us this year's vitally important parent resource symposium called Chasing the High. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, the leading cause of death for people 18 to 45 last year was fentanyl overdoses. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. Not only is this drug highly addictive, but it is incredibly deadly. So much so that only 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. Fentanyl is being mixed with other illicit drugs and prescription pills, causing catastrophic effects across the nation and right here in Santa Clarita. Fentanyl is one of those drugs that's very interesting in that you can treat every other addiction. With fentanyl, people just die, and that is terrifying. There were 23 local deaths from drug overdoses, which have tragically impacted so many families in our community just this year. I applaud each and every one of you for being here tonight to learn about these dangers and taking this crucial step to protect your family. Since 2012, the City of Santa Clarita has made it a priority to collaborate with local public schools to provide resources, presentations, and a safe environment to talk with youth about the dangers of drugs. Through the Drug-Free Youth in Santa Clarita Valley program, better known as DFI in SCV. This school-based drug prevention program is held at the elementary, junior high, and high school levels throughout the City of Santa Clarita. The program's three-prong approach to drug prevention includes education, prevention, and wellness. Throughout the year, city staff provides school presentations, student-led club meetings, and monthly fun activities on campuses. I would now like to introduce the city's DFI and SCV team members who do a tremendous job of ensuring that the message of living a drug-free lifestyle is made available to all of our youth. First, I would like to introduce Jacqueline Martinez, who oversees the elementary school program. Next is Daniel Talamontes, who oversees the junior high school program, and Christian Canales, who oversees the high school programs. Additionally, Cynthia Muir and Amy Lee, who manage the entire DFI and SCV program. Tonight, I invite you to listen to experts from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department as they share the harmful effects of opioid usage and the mental health impacts substance abuse has on youth and families. They will also provide strategies to help students cope with the pressures they face at school and in the media and online. The City of Santa Clarita hopes that by attending this Parent Resource Symposium, parents and legal guardians can feel better prepared to bring up the subject of drugs and the dangers of fentanyl with their children so that they can live a drug-free lifestyle. I'm very proud to introduce and thank tonight's moderator for his ongoing commitment and efforts in protecting our residents and families here in Santa Clarita. So please join me in welcoming Captain Justin Diaz from our local Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor West, for your opening remarks. Good evening. My name is Captain Justin Diaz, Santa Clarita Sheriff Station. Thank you for everybody for being here. Let me start by saying I'm grateful that you guys attend this year's Parent Resource Symposium. You know, we do this every year, and this year the title of it is called Chasing the High, and we're going to be talking about a variety of things. Also, welcome to everybody who's joining us on Facebook Live. And before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I've been on the department 21 years. I previously served at the station as a lieutenant or the operations lieutenant from 2017 to 2019, and then came back as the captain in March of 2020. And I can tell you guys that I have a family. We've grown up in Santa Clarita, or I've raised my family in Santa Clarita, and we do everything here. We live here, we work here, we play sports here, you name it. And certainly because of that, my top priority is safety within Santa Clarita, and I think we can all agree that that's what we all want. And not only safety for everybody in this room, everybody watching, adults, but really safety for our kids, and I think that's why we're all here tonight. Unfortunately, though, one of the main reasons we're here is Santa Clarita is not immune from the deadly spike in fentanyl. So if you guys have watched the news lately, national news, local news, network news, fentanyl is huge, right? It's always been around, but it's certainly made a big impact over the last probably 3 to 6 months, not only in our community, but the greater Los Angeles area. So just in the past year alone, Santa Clarita has seen 23 deaths, overdose deaths from fentanyl. So I think everybody in this room would agree that 23 is too many. And it's scary because you're saying, well, what is fentanyl? How does it work? Why are people dying from it? We're going to talk about that tonight. So that, of course, is why it's so important for us to come together tonight and talk about the issue. So we're going to be talking about that issue. We're going to be discussing why it's happening here in Santa Clarita, and then map out some possible solutions. And those solutions are going to involve not only adults in this room, but certainly our children, right? And working directly with those children. So this affects everybody. Students in middle school, right? That's scary because they're young. Students in high school. And, it's scary stuff. And we know that those are very impressionable years. It's hard for adults, let alone students in high school and middle school. So when you add the remnants of the pandemic, we're all kind of just coming out of COVID-19, of course. You add the remnants of the pandemic, it's easy to see how peer pressure can have an effect on a middle schooler, high schooler, young adult, adult of any age. And those harmful decisions oftentimes lead to drug use. So as parents in this room, legal guardians, caretakers, it's our job to stay educated, right, about drugs and prescription pill abuse, so we can do the best to protect our families. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, or you would like to ask the speakers a question, please text them on the phone number shown on the screen. It's up there right now, 661-607-2783. And then your questions will be answered by our experts, our panel of experts up here. And then anybody watching on Facebook Live right now, submit your questions through Facebook Live, and we'll get to those as well. So before we begin our presentation, I'd like to start our symposium by watching a short documentary. It's called Dead on Arrival. If you haven't heard about this video, it's very, very, very powerful. It's about a 20-minute video, and I think that it's going to be very engaging with this audience. It's going to spark a lot of conversation, a lot of debate, a lot of questions. This video covers the hidden dangers of fentanyl use, along with testimonials from parents who have lost a child to overdose. This video is going to hit home. Unfortunately, a Santa Clarita family is featured within this video, and because their son lost his life after a fentanyl poisoning, after an overdose with fentanyl. So this video is going to be hard to watch, but the information is crucial to keeping our children and our teens educated about the dangers and real-life consequences that stem from prescription pill abuse. So go ahead and start the video.
Unresponsive at this time. ETA about 2 minutes. Anything further?
My name is Dominic Tierno. Since I graduated high school in 2014, I've had the great honor of directing a number of documentary films about drugs and drug addiction. Our mission is to revolutionize drug education by telling real-life stories that motivate young people to make one of the most important decisions of their life, and that's the decision to not use drugs. 2020 was the worst year for drug overdose deaths that we have ever seen. In the beginning of summer in 2020, I came across this article. A 14-year-old kid from a town I grew up in had died from what appeared to be a drug overdose. He's a smart, funny guy who, like many kids, was struggling with some anxiety issues and decided that he would turn to drugs to see if he could help himself with that. What happened was he went and bought this pill, this Oxycontin pill, from a guy he had known, because he thought that pill might ease the pain of what he was going through mentally. Well, he didn't know it, but that Oxycontin pill wasn't a real Oxycontin pill. It was a fake pill. It looked just like the pill that he wanted to try, but instead of Oxycontin, it was made with fentanyl, a synthetic opioid known to be 50 to 100 times the strength of morphine. That one pill he took that night killed him almost instantly, and his mom found him dead in his bedroom the next morning. Before I can even finish that article, I'm scrolling through and I see another linked article. Not far away, around the same time, another 14-year-old dead from fentanyl. So then I go back to Google and I type in fentanyl deaths. I hit search, and then it all made sense. I saw another kid, and I saw high school students, college students, young adults, all recent, all over the country, all dead from fentanyl. And so I'm looking at that and I'm saying, these aren't just normal overdose deaths. These people think they're taking one drug and turns out they're being killed. Why have we not heard about this?
It's a drug 50 times more potent than heroin, and doctors say just touching it can send you to the emergency room. We're talking about the synthetic opioid fentanyl.
The first time I heard about fentanyl was my sister busting in my house being like, don't touch anything in his room, it's fentanyl. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I have no idea what's going on right now. So most people haven't heard of this because we haven't been talking about it. Back in 2013, when it first started showing up, only about 3% of drug users were dying from it. Now we're looking at over 50% of drug deaths being attributed to fentanyl. If Alexander could have got a lesson, I wish he knew about fentanyl. I wish he understood that fentanyl poisoning is real and that every time you try something, you're playing with your life. It is pill roulette every time you try it. As a mom of a kid that was just trying to experiment, that's where it is. As a mom of a kid that died just wanting to experiment, I wish I could just shake you and tell you and make it real for you. But I don't know how to do that. I won't be there when you're faced with these decisions. I know that if he knew the effects of his passing, it would crush him. He never intended for me to find him on his bedroom floor. He never intended for his dad to administer CPR, trying to save his life while we were waiting for the paramedics. Even his 12-year-old sister wanted to run in there and try to help do CPR, but I held her back. Alex didn't intend for me to see him wheeled away on a stretcher and put into an ambulance. Alex had no intentions of me seeing him lying on a stainless steel table covered with a sheet with only his head showing. Alex had no intentions of me knowing what it felt like to kiss his face for the last time. The images that I'm left with of that day replay in my mind on a regular basis. Please do not put your family through this. And please, 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 I beg of you, learn about fentanyl now. Don't wait until your best friend has died, or a brother or your sister. Learn about it now so you can help your friends. You can tell them, you can warn them. You can be a very important part of saving lives.
This would be how much cocaine somebody would have to ingest to kill them. This is the approximate number of prescription pills one would have to ingest to kill them. This is the amount of heroin the average person would have to ingest to kill them. Fentanyl. You're gonna have to bring that camera up here real close to see it. This much fentanyl would kill you and I if we split it. They put fentanyl in cocaine. They put fentanyl in heroin. They put fentanyl, as we already know and talked about, into counterfeit pills. It's odorless, it's tasteless, you don't know it's there. And when you find out it's there, it's too late. You won't even know it. You'll be dead. 2,500 people would be killed by that amount of fentanyl. Does that sound like a drug to you? Does that sound more like a poison? I was a police officer for 31 years, and during my time in narcotics, I'd never heard of fentanyl. In homicide, I saw many, many tragic things. I saw people that were killed by shootings, stabbings, beatings. Nothing that I saw at that particular time would have ever prepared me to see Jessica. I was at work. I got a telephone call from my wife, Srds. She was frantic, uncontrollable, screaming into the phone about Jessica. And I knew something had happened. Jessica lived with her boyfriend, Nicholas, and a stupid decision in which they ordered and had some cocaine delivered to them, to their house, resulted in them ingesting it. And my daughter, at that particular time, became forever 29 years of age. Jessica didn't want to die. She has a beautiful daughter, Alara, who is now with Sheree and I, and we are raising. And she had everything to live for. Jessica knew about fentanyl, you know, from talking about this issue after she died with her friends. I discovered that Jessica had a friend that had even died a couple of weeks prior to her death. And Jessica had spoken to her friends about being afraid. Well, if you knew about it, why would you even risk it, sweetheart? You knew it. Why did you make that bad decision? Who knows? Those are things that you'll never answer. We're just trying to prevent it from happening to somebody else.
Dealers are using social media to show off what they've got, infiltrating feeds of ever younger teens curious about this flashy lifestyle. With more addicts and overdoses by the day, they've got drivers on demand delivering any drug to your door 24/7.
Social media app has changed the game when it comes to narcotics. Fentanyl's all over the place, and just massive amounts of it. And some of them are going to fall trap to that.
4 years ago, DEA in Arizona seized 0 fentanyl. This last year, we seized enough fentanyl to kill 70 million people. You're playing Russian roulette out there when you're taking these pills and you're buying this stuff off the street.
Social media has completely changed the landscape of the drug trade. Most people start by searching for what they think are prescription medications, and drug dealers respond saying that's what they have. But what you have to be careful about is what you're asking for and what you get can be two different things. And if you're buying this stuff from somebody online, their bottom line is they're just looking to make a quick buck. They don't have your best interest in mind. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Unless you're getting these drugs from your doctor or a licensed pharmacy in a bottle that has your name on it, you may as well assume these drugs are fake. You're not getting the real thing. Fentanyl's literally taken over the drug market. It's in everything. It's in meth, it's in cocaine. Obviously, the counterfeit pills that are out there. We're starting to see it showing up now in marijuana. The people who make this stuff, who are putting the fentanyl in everything, they have one goal: to get you hooked. Fentanyl is highly, highly addictive. They're gonna trick you into thinking you're getting something you're not, to take you down that rabbit hole, to get you hooked on fentanyl and have you become an addict. Because to them, you're a customer, and you'll be a returning customer at that point. One of those times, you're gonna get enough fentanyl to kill you. Alex was in her bedroom at night, getting ready for bed. She went on social media in search of oxycodone. It wasn't hard for her to find a drug dealer, and she had what she thought was oxycodone delivered to our house. One pill had enough fentanyl to kill 5 people. My daughter took half of this pill and died instantly. In an instant, my life was changed forever. My last memory of my daughter is of her being wheeled out on a gurney. I saw my daughter brought into this world, and I saw her leave this world. I have 4 daughters and a beautiful wife. Every time we take a family picture, I don't see who's there, I see who's missing. It's an odd feeling to looking forward to dying, because you know that's when your heart will be made whole again. Alex would have never wanted this. Don't do it to your parents.
It's the end of the world at the palm of my hand. If you can't come with me, I'll understand.
It was March 31st. And that evening was one of the most special evenings we had had in a long time. I told him to come downstairs. And I wanted to hug him. I don't know why. And he came down the stairs and he hugged me and he said, "Dad, I'm so sorry for all the things that I had put you through in the past." And I said, "Don't worry about it, Daniel. You're just a kid and you're just learning, but you're going places. You got a great future coming ahead of you. I'm just so proud of you. You have no idea." All right, Dad, good night. Love you. Good night, son. I love you too. See you tomorrow morning. Next day, about 8 o'clock in the morning, when I walked into his room, he was in a lying position facing up against the headboard with his hands over his chest. And I saw his eyes. He had a little blue on top of his lips. I screamed at the very top of my lungs. "Daniel! Daniel! Daniel!" I called the paramedics. They carried him down the stairs and put him on the first floor and started doing chest compressions. And then they took him to Los Angeles Children's Hospital, where we were put in a waiting room. And later on that evening, a team of doctors came in. And they said, "Your boy is just a shell of a boy that he was before. He's not coming back." My only child. I couldn't protect them. I couldn't save his life. I couldn't save my son, Daniel. My son is gone. It wasn't supposed to be this way. He was supposed to graduate from high school this year. If you love yourself, if you respect yourself, if you love life, you have a choice. Because it is between life or death. This is no joke. You can and will die. How do I know this? I can tell you that I've met thousands upon thousands upon thousands of parents nationwide. I wish somebody had sat me down and had this talk with me about what fentanyl does to people. I didn't get that chance. You do.
You know, there's always been one main problem with the films that we make, and it's the reason why we try to keep them as real and as relatable as possible. People just so commonly think that it will not happen to them. I'm talking about great people, nice people, cool people, intelligent people with big plans for the future, big potential. Gone because of one choice they didn't know would end their life. Fentanyl is coming for anyone and everyone. So the most important message that I can give to kids, to teens, young adults, anybody, is the same old message we've heard time and time again, and that's to really get serious about not even trying a drug. You see, back when we first started, I was telling kids not to use drugs because you might get hooked, you might get addicted. Now there's not even time for that. Now it's don't try a drug because you might actually not wake up tomorrow. You might actually not get another chance. One choice is all it takes. If you don't believe that, I guarantee you, at this point, there was someone very similar to you who wished they could be here right now to look into the camera and look into your eyes and say, don't do it. Please don't do it. Please, I wish I wouldn't have done it. Don't do it. Don't risk your life. So my question for you is, are you going to listen? Or will it be your family and your friends holding your picture, wishing they could have been there to tell you?
This is my son, Alexander. He died at 14 years old from fentanyl poisoning.
This is our daughter, Jessica. She was 29 years old when she was killed by fentanyl.
This is my daughter, Alex. She was murdered at 20 years old by a drug dealer who sold her a counterfeit pill made of fentanyl.
This is my son, Daniel Joseph Puerta Johnson, killed at the age of 16 by illicit fentanyl.
This is my son.
Okay, powerful video, right? I can see the looks on the faces. I see tears. I see looks of shock, looks of awe. Pretty powerful. So we started pushing that video out probably 3 or 4 weeks ago on social media. Our local media has done it, our social media at the station. Hart School District, of course, thank you to them for their willingness to share this video with their students, staff, and certainly their parents. Yeah, pretty powerful. I mean, and the reason why we're showing this video at the beginning of our symposium today is because I know everybody's probably got a million questions in their head, and that's okay because we got experts up here to answer them. So before we move any further, I want to recognize one more person in the room that wasn't recognized, Councilwoman Marsha McLean. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. Okay, so this evening, we're joined by local experts who are going to spend the next 40 minutes discussing facts, trends, and the harmful effects of opioid usage. And they're going to discuss mental health impact substance abuse has on youth and families, and also provide strategies to help students cope with pressures they face not only at school, but also in the media and online. I think we can all agree that watching TV, going online, going on your cell phone, there's a lot of pressures for young kids and certainly young adults. So we'll be talking about that. So we've got several presenters here. First is going to be the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department School Resource Deputies, Often they're called SRDs for School Resource Deputies, so we've got them up here. We're going to be meeting them. Also, our Juvenile Intervention Team from the Sheriff's Department, often called J-Team. You might hear them referred to as a J-Team. And then, of course, our Mental Evaluation Team, and we call them our MET Team, right? Because we use acronyms on our job. So we got SRDs, J-Team, and MET Team, and you guys are really going to enjoy hearing from them tonight. So to start, I'd like to begin by having Sergeant Mike Marino. Mike is going to be introducing our school resource deputies and discuss their role on school campuses. So please welcome Sergeant Mike Marino. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. So I have the distinct privilege of being able to supervise the school resource deputies at the Hart High Schools and junior highs. Right now we have with us is Deputy David Martinez is with me. He is at Golden Valley. We have 6 other school resource deputies, but obviously due to all the football games today throughout the valley, they're there today as much as they wanted to be here with us. I think a handout was given of all of them, but we have Deputy Christine Cervantes, Deputy Candace Gonzalez, Deputy Tarek Sala, Deputy, who am I missing here, Mike Perry, Deputy Robert Jensen, and brand new Deputy David Swigert. So every high school currently has a school deputy on the campus, and they have a collateral of the feeder junior high school as well. So I know what I was asked a lot about is what are we seeing on the high school campuses and what are we doing about it? The first thing is we are working with Hart District immensely with full cooperation. They're always calling me, asking how they can help, and we're collaborating together to figure out how we can do things better, make the campuses safer, what we need. So we're really appreciative of that. It makes our job just a whole lot easier. As we were getting ready to do this, the fact is, like the captain said, fentanyl's here. We have it. We've had the overdoses, so there's no secret that we have drugs as well within the high schools. So I didn't have to think back too far. I was trying to think back, what have we had? I could just think back this week. What have we had this week alone? We've made multiple arrests for everything from marijuana up until hallucinogens. Today alone, I think we got about 25 oxycodone pills off one of our schools. They were in a bottle, like you saw on TV actually today, an unmarked prescription bottle. So we don't know what's in them. We don't know if they're counterfeit. We don't know if they're real. We don't know if they're laced with fentanyl. So we're going to treat them like they're laced with fentanyl because we're concerned for ourselves as well as the students. To combat that, one thing we started doing actually, I think with the recent overdoses we've been seeing in the high schools throughout the country and now even in LA County, all our school resource deputies have Narcan, which is our one agent that we get to really combat it. So if we find someone who's overdosed, we have a short window of time to administer Narcan to try and counteract the effects of the fentanyl. So all my school resource deputies have it, and they have it in their radio cars, and now they all have it in their offices, and additionally, they all have one dose of it on their person at all times. So at any given time, that's about 5 doses of Narcan they've got, but they've got one ready to go right away. And that's just something we increased. They've always had some, but we wanted to increase it with seeing it hitting LA County high schools now, and it kind of just caught our attention. The other thing is they're starting to get more proactive. Instead of, a lot of times it's been the school has come to us and said, we found a kid in his backpack and he had some marijuana vapes or he had some pills or something. But now they're actually going out and they're looking a little more. They're trying to be more proactive to solve the problem before it starts. Just to this week, we caught a kid who was vaping in his car, and then the vaping turned into, he had a bunch of hallucinogens, and they wound up having to make an arrest, obviously, behind that. Just on the way over here today, I was on the phone with his parents who were saying, my son's now said he's got a problem and wants help. So it's here, and I think with them being proactive and them trying to find the problem before it becomes too big of a problem, hopefully we can get some help for some more people. I mean, that was a great conversation I had driving over here, was the dad saying, my son wants help. We're going to get him in the meetings. And he was just a regular high school kid that they didn't think there was anything wrong with their son. So the proactive work these guys are doing is really starting to pay off. without wanting to stand up here and just tell you stories over and over, I think a lot of it is going to be more of wanting to answer what you have to say. So, I mean, we've got a lot more presenters, so I want to let the J team, who are the actual experts in the narcotics, talk to you guys a little bit more. I'll be available for anything related to questions about schools, as well as Deputy Martinez when we're done.
Great, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it, and all the school resource deputies for being here tonight. And of course, our school resource deputies, just to reiterate what Mike said, our school administrations and local agencies are working day to day to keep our youth safe and certainly staff on campus. So thank you, Mike. Next, from J Team, which is our juvenile intervention team, Sergeant Diego Andrade. And our J Team, I'm sorry, real quick. So our J Team tackles juvenile drug-related cases and targets suppliers throughout our community. They are also big into intervention and education, and we're going to talk about that with our intervention specialist, Robbie Robinson. But Sergeant Andrade, I'll let you take it away. Go for it.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Sergeant Diego Andrade. I'm the Sergeant Supervisor for the J Team. I've been here in Santa Clarita Station for about 2.5 years. With the J Team a little bit about a year and a half or so. So the team is composed of a detective, which is Detective Grijalva to my left, Deputy Acosta, who is not present here today, Deputy Rite, and then intervention specialist Robbie Robinson. The J Team was established in 2010 to focus on narcotics, specifically due to the rise of the opiate use at the time and the overdoses that we were seeing. The J Team focuses on education, intervention, and enforcement. Okay, and then the J Team, also in conjunction with our Narcotics Bureau at the station, we investigate narcotic violations within the Valley. Okay, and that includes overdose investigations. We try to ascertain the source of the drug where this person obtained the illicit narcotic from. We work hand in hand with the school resource deputies, like Sergeant Marino stated. We try to figure out current trends as to what's going on within the schools here in our Valley. Okay, I'm going to introduce Detective Grijalva. He's going to discuss about the trends and statistics and what we're seeing within the Valley.
All right. Thank you. I'm Detective Michael Grijalva. I'm new to the J Team. I've been with the Sheriff's Department for about 17 years. I recently started here, and I was going through the numbers, and as far as overdose-related calls for service that we've had in this valley through this year to date would be, as of September 18th, was about 170. And then going off of what my captain said, as far as the overdose deaths in the valley, as far as minors go, there was one year to date, and then the others were over the age of 18. Let's see. And then additionally, as far as arrests go, year to date, which is through September 18th, narcotic-related offenses would be 806, and then there have been approximately 40 arrests for those under the influence of controlled substances. Let's see. Oh, and then as far as some of the trends so as far as social media, there's that we've catching on to, I guess, would be the use of Snapchat, Instagram, and then Telegram. And through these, some of the emojis that they're using are anything from as far as mushroom, as far as for mushrooms, pills for fentanyl. I mean, we have a display. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at some of the displays in the back as far as some of the emojis and what the narcotics are that are related to them. Let's see what else.
So just a couple keywords what we've seen in emojis, especially fentanyl, because that seems to be what we're here to discuss mainly. What we're seeing for fentanyl is the emojis, as you'll see the pill little emoji and then the fire emoji. That's what basically fentanyl, that's the key word for fentanyl. When they're either ordering up, purchasing, that's what you should be looking for. And then the street name for the fentanyl is either Fetty or China White is what the term is that's being used. And then as far as other prescription pills that we're seeing is Xanax. Those are either often called bars, ladders, benzos, Xannies, bricks. The pills that you guys saw in the video, the M30 press pills, those are oxycodone, but those are usually laced with fentanyl. If you buy them off the streets, that's where we see all the overdoses. It's mainly off those M30 press pills. And those are referred to Roxy's, Blue Roxy's, M30 Blues, Fresh Pressed. And then the emojis for those are the Z's for like as if you're sleeping, ZZZ, a little bird, or the fire emoji as well. Okay. I'm going to pass it on to Deputy Rite. He'll talk about some cases and seizures, arrests that our team has personally conducted in the past year and a half. And then he'll also talk about what we're doing in the schools and in the community as far as educating the youth and adults on what to look out for. Deputy Rite.
Good evening. Thank you guys all for coming. You guys are taking a great step into a great precaution to protecting yourselves, your children. I'm happy to be here today. Thank you guys for having me. I'm Deputy Rite. I've been with the Sheriff's Department for 6 years. I've been assigned to Santa Clarita for 4. I'm newly assigned to the J team. A lot of the cases that we get are going to be cases, as far as the juveniles go, where these dealers are using social media apps such as Telegram, Snapchat, Instagram, to elicit dangerous drugs. You can't monitor your kid 24/7, so that's why these dealers are using apps where you're not going to be able to see who they're communicating with or who they're talking to. A lot of our cases are people that are using these social media apps, and when we get intel or we develop our own intel, we investigate it further by conducting surveillance, interviewing victims of overdoses, interviewing informants to be able to establish probable cause to effect an arrest. Some of the arrests that we got, these people would set up either their residence, their garages, their vehicles as a marijuana shop. And they'll sell vapes laced with THC or nicotine to minors. And once these minors get the illegal drugs, they're now connected with what we call a plug. So their plug is pretty much going to be their dealer. So that's something to look out for in contacts. When they expose themselves to this world of dangerous drugs, it's a lot easier for them to be elicited fentanyl, counterfeit pharmaceutical pills, methamphetamine, heroin, and so on. So what we have done is we investigate these cases. We will do surveillance, search warrants, what have you, and seize pounds of fentanyl, methamphetamine. We would get heroin, coke, and so on. As Sergeant Marino has mentioned earlier, there was a recent narcotics arrest at a high school where they recovered possibly fentanyl-laced pharmaceutical pills. Some of the things that we use to establish our intel is working with our school resource deputies, which are a group of proactive, motivated individuals that establish great rapport with their students, with their school staff, and we will share intel with each other to be able to hold these people that are selling fentanyl or other dangerous drugs accountable for their actions. We also work with the schools. We'll work with the city events such as Defy to be able to educate parents and students together on the dangers of fentanyl. No one goes out, well, usually people don't go out looking to seek fentanyl. They will be seeking marijuana, or they'll be seeking vapes and stuff like that. And they'll be tricked into buying or purchasing fentanyl, where these products are laced with this dangerous drug that can kill them. And when they don't know that what they're taking can kill them, it ends up hurting their families, the community, and so on. So a lot of things to look for is to their Telegram, Cash App, Zelle, these apps that they use to purchase these illegal drugs. If you guys have any questions, I'm sure at the end we'll do a Q&A, and you guys can ask, and we'll try to help the best we can. Thank you.
Then I'll introduce our intervention specialist, Robbie Robinson. He's been with the J team for how long, Robbie? About a year and a half or so. And Robbie's job is he's out there within the community, intervening, trying to get kids into appropriate programs so they can get off either drugs or put them back in the right direction where they need to be. So Robbie.
Thank you. Excuse me. I guess everybody can hear me. Anyway, I have the opportunity to work with Sergeant Andrade and Sergeant Moreno and a lot of the other deputies. I'm going to be real with you when I talk to you. We already seen what's going on. You have to fight for your kids. You got to stop enabling them. I know some of you want help, but a lot of times when I start dealing with the parents, a lot of them, not all of them, about 5% of them are saying, well, no, he's just smoking marijuana. You heard what the deputy said, what the sergeant said. It's just not marijuana. Some parents are even smoking themselves, and so the kids pick it up and they think nothing's going to happen. So my job here is to make it just as real as possible about what's happening in the street. You saw what happened excuse me, you saw what happened. This is for real. We're losing these kids because a lot of parents aren't fighting for them, and then there are instances where some of the parents, the parents don't even know what's happening. For the kids that have issues, this is what I'm here for. I'm here to help you with your son. A lot of times, if they're on drugs, they'll curse at you and they'll say things to you that you didn't even think that will come out of their mouth. You have to forgive them because that's the drug talk and that's not them. And the more you understand about the drugs, it's a whole culture out there. Just like there's a gang culture, there's a drug culture. And you saw how the kids are getting it. And I won't be long, and I have a handout on the back there about 12 rules for raising delinquent kids. So you have to really start fighting for your kids. Now, I'm not going to go through a long thing if you want to talk to me, but I'm going to say this to you. If there's no accountability, no responsibility, it equals no consequences. And a lot of these kids now, like, what are you going to do to me? The sheriffs are out here fighting real hard. I'm not going to go into political things, but the sheriffs, I'm with them. I see it. Before this, I was a gang probation officer for 35 years, so I kind of understand what's going on. I talk to kids right now, what are you going to do to me? We saw what it'll do to them. They'll die. If you know that your kids are using drugs and you feel that you need help, you can call me. I will make recommendations for you. I'm going to try to help you the best way that I can. Now, let's look at the last thing I'll say. If there is accountability, if there is responsibility, and if there are consequences, you get resources. The Sheriff's Department here has great resources. Every day I go in, I talk to the sergeant about what's going on. I let him know who I'm talking to. There are resources here. I know a lot of the kids will rebel against you. There'll be recidivism. They'll keep doing it over and over, but you have to keep fighting for them. But do not enable them, and do not be in denial. Do not be in denial. Oh, I was talking to a parent yesterday. They told me he was cutting himself, and not only that, he was drinking and smoking marijuana. I called them and said, I'm offering you resources. Her words to me were, well, you know what? I went over to church, and I'm not knocking the church. I'm not knocking that. Well, he's talking to a pastor. He'll be all right. I said to her, if you need me, here is my number. If you want help. So let's look at this for real. When I talk to a lot of the kids, I tell them the truth. You keep messing around out here in the street, this is what's going to happen. You have 4 options. You're going to be an addict, you're going to be homeless, you're going to be in jail, or you're going to die. That's it. That's how it is. Now, I know some of the people need help. I get that. I'm willing to say, this is what we can do for you. But you know and I know that some of the kids are just openly defiant. And so I have to talk to them the way it is. That's how you have to do it. I can't sugarcoat it, because if I sugarcoat it, they'll probably die sooner. If I tell them, if you keep doing this, you're going to go to prison, or you're going to go to jail, or you're going to be homeless on the street, they'll look at me like this. And sometimes I see them tears in their eye. I keep doing that and keep doing that and keep making recommendations for them so that we can save their life. You want to save your kid's life, even if they get mad at you. You got to say, you know what, I don't care. I'm doing this for your own good. I would rather them be alive arguing with me than see somebody carrying them in a box. Does that make sense to you? All right, I kind of got a little. Thank you.
Robbie, thank you. Powerful words. Civilian Intervention Specialist Robbie Robinson, 35 years probation officer?
35 years in gang, and we worked together.
We worked together many years ago. He retired. We were able to pick him up on our J team as an intervention specialist. So if you guys need something, you call the station. Robbie, I hope you brought business cards, because you're going to get a bunch of people are going to ask for them. You're always going to get the straight shot from Robbie. He's one of the good guys. He lives out here, and he's heavily invested in this community and our station, so we're very fortunate. Thank you. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Diego, and your entire team. Thank you. Okay, and our last team that we're going to introduce is something you guys hear about all the time. That's mental health, right? A lot of this is all intertwined, the drugs, the mental health, the schools, you name it. So our mental evaluation team met. Mental evaluation team, we have a team at the station that goes out to calls. They don't go to all of our calls, of course, but they go out to a number of our calls anytime they involve mental health or 5150 commitments. But anyway, Deputy Dorian Anaya and Supervisor from Department of Mental Health, Jennifer Leonard. So go ahead, guys. Take it away.
Like the captain said.
Hit your mic. There you go.
Like Captain said, my name is Deputy Dorian Anaya. I'm currently assigned to our LA County Sheriff's Mental Evaluation Team. I'm assigned to Santa Clarita Station, to be specific here. Our team consists of a deputy and a Department of Mental Health licensed clinician social worker. So that's a team, deputy and a social worker. Usually you won't see me dressed like this. I'll be in a black polo shirt, green pants, a little bit more low key, and it kind of helps de-escalate people that are a little agitated. Our main work we do is respond to calls for service that involves somebody having a mental health crisis. So we help with de-escalating. We'll do field interviews. We'll do field evaluations to see if they need to be placed on maybe an involuntary hold, a 5150 hold for an adult, or a 5585 hold for a juvenile. And if we do determine that they need to be hospitalized, we'll figure out where we can take them, how we can help them. Or if they don't need to be hospitalized, we'll try to provide resources to further care, or maybe therapy, or some sort of resource we can give them. Like I said, it's a deputy and a licensed social worker. This is my partner here. Maybe she could introduce herself.
So hi, I'm Jennifer Leonard from Department of Mental Health, and I'm supervisor with one other supervisor who's not here tonight, but that's Esteban Avila. And so we cover the week. We have teams that are writing 20 hours a day, so we don't have coverage from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., but otherwise there's always teams, usually 2 teams to cover the whole of the North County. So that's going to be Palmdale, Santa Clarita, Lancaster, and actually down south too a little bit, Lost Hills. So we cover a wide area, and in all we have about 40 teams riding it throughout the week, and that's throughout the whole of LA County. But we have a lot of activity in here, in the North County. So we're pretty busy.
Yeah, I'll give some quick numbers.
Oh yeah, we got some numbers for you.
Last year, there was a total of 17,200 calls for service that involved somebody with a mental health crisis. Out of those 17,000 calls, our team was able to respond to 7,200 of them. That's a pretty good amount of calls. And each call we go to takes a fair amount of time. So it's pretty impressive that we're able to go to 7,200 calls. Like my partner said, there's about 40 teams. We cover 7 days a week from 2 shifts, 6 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, and then 4 in the afternoon till 2 in the morning. The only time we don't have coverage is 2 to 6. So we're busy. Santa Clarita's busy. We're all busy.
Yeah, so how calls are routed to us is they're coming through 911. So these are going to be calls that have a mental health component. And as we know, there's oftentimes a mental health component when it comes to, drug use and all of that. So there's going to be that sort of co-occurring maybe when it comes to youth or even grown-ups too. They're looking for ways to sort of self-medicate. So we're oftentimes seeing mental health issues that are not being treated and not being addressed, and so folks are seeking out these alternative means. So that's something that we always consider, and luckily I was tickled to see all the resources we have. We really are very lucky to have so many resources. But again, the calls that are routed to us have that mental health component and oftentimes an urgent or emergent component. So that's going to be somebody who's imminently threatening themselves or someone else and could be under the influence. But those are the kinds of calls that we respond to kind of see if we can create a safety plan, if we can create a plan for folks to get those resources, or if they need to be taken to the hospital on a 5585 or 5150. And again, we do our best to get to all the calls, and we don't always get to all of them. If we don't respond, and that's the clinician writers, then there will be regular patrol that's going to be addressing those calls. And yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty frequent when we hear on the call for service at the family member places where they themselves say, "Could you please send a MET team to our call?" And that's pretty good to hear because they know we're out there. So it's good when we hear that.
Good. Okay, thank you guys. So you guys, mental health is huge in policing. I've often talked about if you talk to a police officer 10 years ago and you ask them, what was the main topic of policing 10 years ago or prior, they would have told you gang members, right? They would have told you guns, and they would have told you hardcore street drugs like cocaine. Now you talk to a modern day police officer and it's schools, school safety, it's mental health, and homelessness, and all of those kind of seem to be intertwined in one way or another. So thank you so much. Our MET team at Santa Clarita Station, even department-wide in conjunction with LA County, has really done wonders for us. It's amazing how many of our calls for service involve mental health, a significant amount of calls for service. And, Deputy Anaya hit on it briefly, but they're very, very, very long calls for service, because by the time you get out there, assess somebody, take them to the hospital, get them admitted into a psych ward, either at Henry Mayo, all of you, Huntington Memorial, you had mentioned. You're into this call for service for 5, 6, 7 hours sometimes. So as you can imagine, it's labor intensive. And the beauty of having them is that they can do it and leave the regular patrol deputies in the field to handle other calls for service. So anyway, thank you for what you do. You're a very important component of our, our puzzle here that we got going at the station. So thank you. Okay, so I think we're going to move into a Q&A portion. Do we have some questions? Okay. Okay, so we've got questions that are coming in via text since we started, and then on Facebook Live. And basically, I will be reading off the questions and then deferring to our experts to handle. So where are we going to go? You have it? Okay, so we've got a bunch of questions that came in. I'm going to try and read Amy's writing here. Let's see if I can do it. Okay. Is there a text phone number for kids in schools to use to report issues or concerns? So a text phone number for kids in schools. Mike, can you answer that? Or Dave? Okay, we'll come back to that one. Do you have it? Do you have it handy by chance? Okay. We'll come back to that one. Okay, next. Where is fentanyl coming from, and how are kids getting it? So Diego, is that something that you can tackle? Basically, where's fentanyl coming from? Why do we have it here? Who's making it? Why do we have it? And how are kids getting it?
Yeah, so fentanyl, as you guys understood in the video, is a synthetic opioid. And its origin is from China, hence the name. The street term is China White. But obviously it's smuggled through the border, the southern border, and it's brought here to the U.S. And then from there, it's dispersed throughout the communities. And unfortunately, that's how our kids, that's how our adults gain access to it. Okay, and the pills, like you guys heard, they're pressed. You may believe it's an oxycodone pill, but in reality, it's laced with fentanyl. And like the video, you take one pill and you're taking a extremely potent piece of narcotic that it's 50 times stronger than heroin, 100 times stronger than morphine.
Thank you. Mike, you want to address the student care line?
Yeah, so now every school is going to have a different line. So instead of trying to read through various email addresses and phone numbers, but if you go to the William S. Hart School District website, text a tip, it'll give you for the particular school you're looking for. But every junior high and every high school has their own individual text a tip line.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, good question here. How can a good Samaritan recognize and take precaution when encountering somebody down from fentanyl or basically having an overdose? So Diego, Sergeant Andrade, maybe you can touch upon that?
So what you don't want to do is go through their belongings to see what the source of the intoxication is, because there's a strong chance that there could be fentanyl inside their containers, backpacks, purses, and so on, and you don't want to expose yourself to that poison. Call 911 as soon as you can. Every deputy that's working the field, LA County Fire Department, we all have Narcan on us. The sooner we can get there, the sooner we can deploy Narcan, the sooner or the better the chances and the odds are of that individual surviving. So us as deputies in the field, if we don't know whether someone is down due to opioid overdose or not, the best bet is, or the best practice is to administer Narcan because the chances of them being saved from that Narcan is a lot higher. And then once LA County Fire gets there, they do their evaluation and the individual gets transported.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question. How can Snapchat be monitored in regard to drug dealers? And what can parents do? So, and I think we touched upon this with our emojis, but I'll throw that to either Sergeant Andrade or Sergeant Moreno. Basically monitoring Snapchat, what to look for, emojis, slang terms, things like that.
Sure. So like we said earlier, the main platforms that we're seeing is Telegram, Snapchat, and Instagram. Facebook has kind of phased out with the youth, but some stuff to look out for, again, is the key emojis that we discussed, whether it's the fire symbol, the pill symbol, the little snowflake that's referred to cocaine, various other emojis that you can immediately recognize, or if you see that, you can question or even look it up on the internet. You know, the internet's a valuable tool. You could bring that up and you'll be able to see what that is. But Snapchat, the bad thing with Snapchat is a lot of why they use it is because they can easily erase it or it falls out within a matter of seconds. Okay, once someone views a story, it's deleted and there's no record of that. Even with us, when we try to attempt to gain records, a lot of times we can't because it's erased, it's wiped out.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that real quick. I know they wanted a little discussion. So one of the great things about that question there is how can a parent monitor it? And that's key, is monitoring, knowing what your kids are doing. I think too many times from the parents we've talked to with the high school kids, we've asked what their kids are doing on their phone, and the response is, that's my kid's privacy. I don't invade it. So the question in and of itself is great because they're monitoring. They are trying to figure out what's going on. So you don't want to be the parent that we saw on the TV that said, I had no idea what my kid was doing. So that's a great place to start.
Hey, so Sergeant Marino, you bring up a good point. I heard some laughs, so I think everybody knows, but just in case, what is the law about a parent monitoring their kid's phone? Do they have a legal expectation of privacy for anybody who may not know? Go, and I'm gonna preface it with the parents probably paying the cell phone bill also, but just in case anybody's confused, can a parent check their kid's cell phone?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, you're paying the bill, so the phone's yours. Check it away. I'll even expand upon that too. I'm sure you're probably helping them clean the room or pick something up once in a while. So the room, if you want to snoop around it, you can do that too.
And I think it's safe to say a 17-year-old who pays their own cell phone bill, can a parent check that cell phone?
Can a parent? Sure. There's no legal aspect of it. It's more of what we can do with it is when you start getting into some of the legal aspects. But I think a concerned parent needs to be a concerned parent. So don't so much worry about what's law enforcement be able to do with what I find as far as let me take care of my kid.
So important thing to remember, parents, you can't violate your kids' rights. The police can violate rights, right? But parents cannot violate rights, understood? So as police officers, we have to ensure that we are not violating rights. But parents, you don't have to worry about violating your kids' rights because you're not held to the standard of law enforcement. Does everybody understand that? I see smiles and I see shaking heads. So the moral of the story, check the phones, whether you pay for it or your child pays for it, check their rooms. You got to have these open conversations. Robbie hit the nail on the head. You got to have these open, tough conversations with your kids. You can't be in la la land, thinking that everything's great. Hopefully it is, but maybe it's not. So great question. Okay, what is the best way to talk to children about the dangers of fentanyl? That's a tough question. What is the best way to talk to children about the dangers of fentanyl and other drugs so they know not to get into them at all? So basically, maybe Robbie, can you talk about that? How do you open up that conversation? What do you think a minimum age would be? When do you think it's appropriate?
Well, I'm dealing with a kid right now who's 11 years old. He's already expressed being a gangster. He came to school high. I'm already dealing with him, and I talk real tough to him. I can talk until I'm blue in the face, but when you put something like this up, his attention, he was like this. His eyes was glued to the screen. You might have to take movie night away and probably have education night and show something about fentanyl like we looked at today. You have to sit there with your kids. You're going to learn, and they will learn also. Another thing I wanted to say, there's a great director who has a really great program. I've been working with him for a year. Kerry Quashin, he's in the back there. Would you stand up for a second? There he is. You have problems with your kids and stuff. I've been recommending people to him and to some other places, but he is really straightforward and can help you with your kids. He has lots of counseling sessions there. The kids, I come in and I sit in there and I really talk to them like you heard me say earlier. But the more you learn about the drug, the more you will save your son's life. Again, they'll get mad, oh well, but I'd rather them be mad than be carried out in a box.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Captain, you asked about age. So what age do we start talking to them? We got a phone call last week from the elementary schools now asking for something for 5th and 6th graders because a 6th grader brought some gummy bears to school that he thought were gummy bears. And several of his friends found out they were not gummy bears. So they're already asking, they were gummy bears, but they were laced with marijuana. So they're already asking now in the schools and as low as 5th and 6th grade for us to start talking. So if they're going to be talking to your kids in school, you may want to be talking to them at home as well.
That's right.
Okay, good. Does that surprise anybody, 5th and 6th grade? Does that seem about right? Does that seem too young? Does that seem like we're waiting too long? Just something to think about. Rhetorical question, something to think about. 5th and 6th grade. Okay, here's a great question. I can answer this. I'll leave you guys off the hook on this one. I'll answer this. What happens when somebody has a mental health crisis between 2 and 6 a.m.? right? Okay, so we know that we don't have met between 2 and 6 a.m. You simply call the station, explain what's going on. They'll send out a deputy sheriff. Any peace officer in the state of California, including a deputy sheriff in Santa Clarita, can place somebody on a 5150 WIC hold or a 5585. 5150 being adults, 5585 being juveniles. So any peace officer in the state of California can do it. The only difference is that deputy will not be responding, one, with a clinician from LA County, and also that will not have as much training as a Met deputy has. So all the deputies have basic mental health training, but certainly our Met deputies have quite a significant amount more. But have no fear, if you call between 2 and 6, we will get there and we'll certainly handle it for you. So great question. Okay, here's another one. Have any of the deaths in Santa Clarita, so we've had 23 this year, related to fentanyl overdose been tied to marijuana? And I actually don't know that answer. Sergeant Andrade, would you have any of that information?
No, actually, we do not know exactly the source. And actually, Captain, current stats as of September 18th, we are up to 24 deaths, just so everyone knows. And like my partner said, one being a juvenile and the rest adults. But yeah, right at this moment, no, we don't know exactly out of those 24 deaths which died as of fentanyl, marijuana, or any other narcotic.
Great, thank you. Here's a great question, just came in. How can parents get Narcan and where is it sold? Great question. So let me, before I throw that to Sergeant Andrade, I will tell you that the Sheriff's Department got it, at least Santa Clarita did, and I think we were the pilot station back in 2018. We're the first station, or maybe one of the first stations to get Narcan. We've been carrying it since 2018. We have administered it quite a few times, although I don't have the statistics with me. It's pretty remarkable. Oftentimes we beat the fire department to calls for service simply because they're leaving from the fire station and we have cars out all throughout the city and throughout Santa Clarita. And we often beat the ambulance or the fire department to the calls, and we have Narcans, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people since 2018. Saved quite a few lives. Also inmates in our jail. You know, we have a large jail at the station. We hold inmates for up to 48 hours before they're sent to either court or the main county jail downtown. And so we're responsible for their health and safety for those 48 hours. And we've Narcaned quite a few inmates as well. So with that said, how can parents get Narcan? Where is it sold? And about how much does it cost? Sergeant Andrade, can you help with that?
Yeah, so like the captain said, of course, we carry Narcan, and that's issued to us by our department. The fire department gets it. Some local pharmacies do offer it for free. Don't quote me as to which one. Maybe your local Walgreens, Ralph's may have them, so you might want to check with your local pharmacy and see if they offer that. I know they do, but I don't know which participate in the program.
And how about cost?
Some are free.
And if they're not doing a free program, do you know about how much they are?
I've heard ranging from $15 to $20, $25 or so.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll, as we move on, will you see if you can get a price online? And then we'll come back to that. Thank you for that. We'll get a price either through Walgreens or Rite Aid or whoever's got it locally, just to kind of get an idea of what it costs. Okay, so here's a great question. Why is fentanyl added to drugs like oxycodone? I mean, why is it even added in the first place? Why not just leave the drugs alone? So I'll throw that to Sergeant Andrade.
A lot of the street dealers, they're not regulated by a healthcare department. There's no regulation for them. So their workspace that they have could just be filthy. They could have fentanyl laying around that gets mixed in with other drugs such as marijuana. A lot of drug dealers will also lace their other narcotics or drugs with fentanyl in hopes to get that individual addicted to fentanyl, since it's a highly addictive drug. And once they're able to accomplish that, if the person doesn't overdose, they end up coming back to seek more drugs. So pretty much, they're doing it to keep the customer coming back.
Okay, our next question, I think Sergeant Moreno briefly touched upon this, but is Narcan available on school campuses if the SRDs are not present? Now, we will certainly not be speaking on behalf of the school district, Hart School District, or any of the other school districts, but I think, Mike, you can briefly touch upon that, what we have at the schools right now.
So they're actually, without speaking for the district, I think that's in the works though, but right now, currently, there's at least doses in the school resource deputy's office. So we as a sheriff's department have it in their office, and anyone who administrator's got a key to that office could get it in an emergency and administer it if needed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, here's a good question. Is there any way to push for harsher punishments, stronger legislation, like attempt murder for somebody knowingly selling fentanyl? I'll take that one unless anybody's dying to raise their hand over here on this. No. Robbie, I'll let you touch upon it, and
I'll touch on it real quick. I'm dealing with a case where a kid was selling, and in my mind, there's a difference between a guy that's selling and a person that's using. This guy was selling, he was caught, and this is just my personal opinion. I think you should go to jail. That's just my personal opinion if you're selling out there. I'm not saying throw away the key, but I think there should be harsher sentences for people who are selling drugs. I think what's happening, I think if the users start seeing it, I think some of them may start taking, but wait a minute, I don't want to get caught up. I know of some, I would say this, when you go to court, if you are, what I'm telling the parents to do now, when I'm dealing with them, if they are really willing to step up to the plate, I tell them to document what's going on with your son. When you go to court, I don't say it, I say, Your Honor, I would like for you, the parent would like to speak. The parent speaks about what's going on. Sometimes people will get a penalty. Sometimes the judge, hearing from the parent, your kid may get some good treatment. But for persons who are selling drugs, if the parent knows it, the parent's fed up with it, because when they're selling, they're bringing all kind of problems all around the house. Other people may come and shoot up the house. You don't know who's going to come to your door. You don't know. But if the parents say something in court, I believe the judge, if they're emphatic, I believe the judge will make a harsher sentence. But the parents have to start speaking up. That's just one aspect.
Thank you, Robbie, and I'll expand upon that. So beginning July 1st of this year, Sheriff Villanueva started a narcotics response task force, and I don't have the exact name of the task force, but it's through our Narcotics Bureau. And we've got a group of detectives, narcotics detectives, that are now responding to every single overdose death throughout the county. Although I don't have the exact numbers, since July 1st, I think that countywide out of 23 sheriff stations, we've been averaging about one a day, give or take. And so this task force is responsible for responding out and conducting an investigation. And certainly their goal is to look for the dealer and prosecute that dealer. Now, whether that task force handles it, your local sheriff station, police station handle it, either way, it's going to be investigated, it's going to be presented to the district attorney's office, and it's going to be up to the district attorney's office to prosecute it. So I can tell you on the sheriff's department, certainly at Santa Clarita Station, we're never going to stop making arrests, conducting investigations, and maintaining law. But once we do that, it's got to be presented to the district attorney, and unfortunately, it's out of our hands. So this question, getting back to the question, is there a way to push for harsher punishments? And at least law enforcement cannot push for harsher punishments other than maybe, speaking with the judge, like Robbie's talking about. But ultimately, it's going to come down to, you speaking to, your elected officials. I was going to say politicians, your elected officials, and telling them that's what you want. and voting in elected officials that are for harsher punishments. So that doesn't happen overnight. That's a long-term goal or a long-term solution, but certainly something that you'd have to work for or work toward. Here's an interesting question. Is the DEA working out of the sheriff's station? So the DEA is a federal agency, the Drug Enforcement Agency. No, they do not work out of the sheriff's station. At the sheriff's station for drug enforcement, we have Narcotics Bureau, which is a separate bureau that we house within our station, and that consists of a sergeant and several detectives. And then also we've got our juvenile intervention team, which of course is our detective, 2 deputies, and our sergeant, and Robbie as well. So no, the DEA does not work in the station. However, on large narcotics cases, our Narcotics Bureau and our J team certainly works with the DEA on those big cases. So that's a great question. Okay, here's a great question. Can you tell the difference between pills from a pharmacy and pills made on the street? So if you guys saw that little pill pressing machine on the video, pretty amazing to see that. That could be in somebody's own house. So I'll throw that to Sergeant Andrade. Any way to tell a fake pill from a real pill?
Absolutely not. And that's the problem with the M30 pills. They look identical as if you went to your local pharmacy and obtained them there. It looks exactly the same. There's no way to tell.
Okay, follow-up question that came in. Can you test for fentanyl? So can the police test? Can our parents test? Can, average Joe on the street test for fentanyl? Is there a test available? And I know Kerry's shaking his head over there. Kerry Quashen from Action. First, I'll ask Diego, and then if you don't have any info on it, we'll throw it over to Kerry. Okay, Kerry, I know you don't have a mic. Essentially, Kerry is saying yes, there is test. Kerry runs Action Drug Rehab on Soledad. Kerry Quashen, thank you, Kerry, for being here. Kerry, and so you offered to provide tests if somebody needs it?
Absolutely. I hope you all can hear me, but anytime if you're worried about your kid or husband or whatever, and you need a test, we test free. So anytime we can also test for drugs that they have too. So if you have a drug that you think might be contaminated with fentanyl, call us and I'll test it for you.
And Kerry, where could a mother, a teacher, a coach, where could your just average person get a test? Where do you pick something up like that from, and what do they cost?
You can get them online, and they're reasonably cheap. They're like just a few bucks, not bad at all. If you Google it, they're all over there. If you need one, you can call us.
Okay, thank you.
I want to say one more thing real quick, though. Just for parents, if you're going to test your kid, please don't buy a test that's just test for marijuana. Make sure you get a 10-panel test and you test for everything. You're considering fentanyl, separate test.
And would fentanyl show up on a 10-panel test?
No, it's a separate test. You want to make sure that and when you test, you also have a specific test for fentanyl. If you go to a treatment center or a lab, you have to ask for it.
Okay, thank you, Kerry. Okay, great question here. This is going to be a tricky one. What do you do if your child's phone is password protected and you can't get in? Oh, yeah, everyone's laughing, huh? Yeah, okay. Mike?
Take it away. If they want it's a teenage kid, they're going to want their phone back, so, or they're not going to get it back. But yeah, take it away.
Okay, well, how about if we can't take it away, or you do take it away, but then you got to give it back to them? Your thoughts?
Yeah, you're not getting in without the password.
Okay, so yes, so you take it away and they don't get it back till they give you the password, or you wait till they fall asleep and then you use the Face ID thing, right, and put it up to their face, right? Yeah, go ahead. Speak up real loud so everybody can hear you, and then I'll probably repeat it into the microphone. Yeah, so great point. So, and what's your name, ma'am? Dr. Manuel? Thank you. Yeah, so what she said is there is software that you can get that will link your phone to your child's phone, and then you can see everything they're doing. In a perfect world, I think we would all do that as parents. I'm guilty of it, of not doing it. But yeah, no, that's a great idea. So you would see all their text messages, all their emails, I'm assuming all their pictures. Yeah. So that's an option. Taking away their phone until they give you the password's an option, or waiting till they fall asleep and using the Face ID would be an option. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, this is interesting. Is there a way to trace fentanyl sales on Snapchat? Why can't Snapchat just be shut down? Okay, well, I think we know the answer, but anybody want to tackle that one? So ultimately, we can't shut down Snapchat, but is there a way to trace fentanyl sales on Snapchat?
Yes, we can obtain records if needed, and that's part of what our team does, is if we receive information regarding someone that is selling through that application, we can obtain court orders, search warrants, and obtain records that way.
Great, thank you. Okay, how is a drug dealer caught? This is a very open-ended question. You guys could just give something very brief, but I think the bigger part of this is, what is the typical sentence for a drug dealer? And that is a very, very open-ended question. We could probably be here all night talking about that. Does anybody want to tackle that? Just something very quick. How are they typically caught, and what's a typical sentence for somebody? Let's say a state sales case. We arrest somebody for sales in Santa Clarita on a state case.
So typically, well, things have changed, obviously, with new elected officials coming into office and everything. What I have seen with these sales cases is either the DA won't pursue it due to being a first-time offender. They'll get probation and a year or so in jail, and things along that route. As far as the more severe fentanyl overdose sentencing, I know that our Sheriff's Department overdose task force does try to take that to a federal level and have them prosecuted on a federal level for attempted murder or murder and so on.
Yeah, and I'll expand upon that. I'm going to make my comments very, very brief. In December, early December of 2020, our district attorney started a series of new DA directives, which very complicated. There's a lot to explain, but ultimately, when we arrest somebody for drugs, they are not filed. The case is not filed. So we can make the arrest, and that could be any drugs. That could be, you name it, marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, fentanyl, you name it, prescription pills. We can make the arrest, but the case is not filed. They're immediately released from custody. So without getting into a big political debate about that, let's talk about what that means on the back end. So typically, before those policies were put in place, if you were arrested, you would see a judge. The judge would say, whatever, Mr. Smith, you've been to my courtroom 10 times. I'm tired of seeing you. I'm going to lock you up for whatever he says, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever the case is, right? Maybe that's what the judge would do. Or maybe the judge says, Mr. Smith, I've never seen you before. You're a first-time offender. I'm going to give you drug rehabilitation, right? And you're going to go to 10 drug classes over the next 6 months. And if you complete your classes, I'll wipe your record clean and that's it. Or I'm going to send you to those classes. If you don't complete the classes, I'm going to put a warrant for your arrest, okay? So that's how it used to work. Well, under the new DA's directives, they're all no-file cases, meaning we make the arrest, the detective packages up the arrest, takes it to the district attorney. It's an automatic no-file. And the person's immediately released at their first court hearing, which in theory would be an arraignment within 48 hours, in theory. So what does that mean? So now, since 2020, I believe it was December 8, 2020, when this new DA directive started, now we don't have incarceration and we don't have rehabilitation. We have neither. So now all these people that we are arresting for drugs, right, they are not being incarcerated. They're going back out to redo the drugs, which could lead to overdose or giving drugs to somebody else. And they're not being rehabilitated, right? So now we're not sending them to drug class. It's not court-imposed drug class. So if you're a drug offender and you're addicted, are you going to go seek treatment? Some do, right? I know Kerry's nodding his head. Some do, but it's a very small percentage, guys. Very, very, very small percentage. Unless there is a intervention with the family and they're going to force that person to go get treatment, and you know how hard that is. We're talking about getting in our kids' cell phones. Imagine forcing an adult or a young adult or an older child, an older youth, physically forcing them to get treatment. Almost impossible, right? If you can't get in your kid's phone, how are you going to do that? So anyway, that's something we're dealing with. It's been since December 8th of 2020, and it's had some pretty drastic consequences, unfortunately. So enough with that. Let's move on. Okay, here's a question. How can I assist the City of Santa Clarita and the Sheriff's Department in making Santa Clarita a safer place for our youth? I'll tackle this one. Really it's about getting the word out. It's about resources like this, resource symposiums like this. It's about spreading the word. It's about not pretending that we don't have a problem, because we do. Problems that affects every city in the country, every town. Santa Clarita is a great place, but it's certainly not immune, and really it takes a grassroots effort, which Santa Clarita is famous for doing, by the way, if anybody's grown up out here. It takes a grassroots effort. So really the way you can assist is, telling your friends, telling your family about resources, about the J team, about the mental evaluation team, about our school resource deputies, about Carrie Quash, and about, City of Santa Clarita Defy program, you name it. There's all kinds of stuff out here and all kinds of resources. So that's one way you can do it. Let's get a couple more questions, and then I think we'll probably, has anything else come in? Anything significant? Okay, we'll do a couple more, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, one question that came in, and we've already addressed it. Can marijuana be laced with fentanyl? The answer is absolutely yes. Kerry's shaking his head. I know you've seen quite a bit of it, because at our press conference a few weeks ago, that was, I think, the first thing you told me when I walked in the door, that you were testing marijuana that was testing positive for fentanyl.
We're testing some of our adolescents that come in, and there's no way they're using fentanyl, and it is showing up. So they are lacing it in everything. And I'm not much on harm reduction, even though I'm changing my mind on that with today's state of where we're at. But I will say, if somebody's going to buy marijuana, they better buy it from a reputable, legal place. Otherwise, you've got no clue what's in it.
Thank you, Kerry. Okay, we're watching online. If we're watching online, where can we get the handouts? Mike or Diego, what's the easiest way? So we've got a ton of handouts back there. If you want to just briefly mention what's back there, how they can get it, how they can get a hold of you guys, how they can get a hold of Robbie, all that good stuff.
I have some handouts. I have a few handouts. I didn't bring my briefcase, but I'll go back out. I'll put a few handouts of the J team. I'll give my cards out there. And the handouts with the J team have a litany of things in mental health, everything that you can get involved in. And so if you do call me, just be real clear to me about what's going on. I don't have all the answers, but I know I have to carry a question. I can go to the sergeant, I can go to Mike Marino, I can go to all the Martinez. I can go to these guys and say, hey, this is what I have. And if they tell me, you know what, Rob, the family needs help, then I'm gonna jump right on it. So I will put some pamphlets from the J team there in the back in just a few minutes, okay? All right.
Great, thank you. Are we going to take any more? Should I take some audience questions? Yeah, okay. Do we have a wireless mic? Okay, so I know it's getting late, and I don't want to take all your time. If we have a few audience questions, we'll take a little bit longer. You ask just a quick question, I'll repeat it so everybody can hear it, especially the people online, and then we'll tackle that as best we can. So, yes, ma'am. Okay. Hold on, she's going to bring you a microphone. So if you raise your hand, we'll come around and we'll bring a microphone to you. Oh, the student? Yeah.
So my question was at the very beginning with the Snapchat. That was my question. I'm the type of parent that monitors my children's phone, and with the Snapchat, my son saved all his conversations, so all the drug deals were on there. The usernames of these drug dealers, is that helpful to you guys if we were to report that? Because I have those, and I got conflicting before answers of like, it's useful or it's not useful because it's Snapchat. And
Yes, if you have usernames, any information from that social media platform, that's 100% helpful to us. We could use that username and obtain records that way, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for monitoring. And I don't think we hear too often that our kids kept all their Snapchat. Yeah, that's pretty rare. Good, great job. Thank you. Great question. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. So one of my questions had to do with the arrests of drug dealers. I know you had said, I understand the directives from the DAs, that's all of LA County, and they're being filed as no files. But I heard one of your officers say that if it has to do with fentanyl, they're also moving them towards the feds for murder and attempted murder charges. So what is the status with that? Like, how do we know if that's done? Because one of the issues that I have is my little brother died from a counterfeit fentanyl pill in May. And so I know his drug dealer was also released back to the streets, and I understand it's because of the DA. But what is the process of putting them through to get to the feds?
Did that happen in Santa Clarita?
Happened in Santa Clarita.
Okay, well, I'm very sorry for your loss. I definitely want to talk afterwards, so let's connect afterwards. But to answer your question, our task force through Narcotics Bureau, which started July 1st, I will put you in touch with them. So ultimately, they're going to be the ones that would decide whether or not a state case is going to be a federal case. And certainly that's what they are trying to do on all of these cases. But as you can imagine, the federal system is just as backed up as the state system and a lot more complicated. They take the federal system takes way less cases. They want a perfect case. And so, it's definitely not a quick turnaround, but let's connect afterwards. And then I will put you in touch with the detectives running that, and we'll touch base with you and your family. Thank you.
I have a question. So I noticed that the education is more abstinence-only interventions, and I'm wondering how likely it would be for you to educate the public, especially the schools, about harm reduction interventions. Narcan use with our children right now. So as the last person indicated, there's people right now going to parties after their football games. And so I believe that this type of education would be suitable for these children going to these parties. It's going to be a while for someone to call 911 and respond to someone, but we know with Narcan you have about 30 minutes. So if someone's able to intervene at that moment, I think that it will be helpful. So how likely is it for us to implement these harm reduction methods in these schools, just like we're doing these videos?
So great question. So any, I shouldn't say training's any education/training, our school resource deputies are always available, and they're always working with the administration of Hart School District, the principals, the vice principals, and the superintendents for any training and education. But anything beyond what we typically do would have to become at the request of either Hart School District or our other 4 school districts that oversee our grammar schools. We are open to any training. If it's something that we can provide that we have an expert on, we certainly will. If not, I mean, the department is massive. There's always an expert on the department that can provide a specific type of training. If you had something in mind in particular, I would ask you to certainly speak to your principal, vice principal, superintendent, however you're going to do it, and then have them put them in touch with us, and then we can, who knows, the school district might already have the training, they might be doing it, and if not, maybe that's something they would consider doing, and maybe we can help facilitate it. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. So do you mean the school providing Narcan? The public. I don't understand what you mean.
The public, like for parents, if a child is going to a party, they have nasal spray, how do they get it on?
Oh, for the child to have it on them. Yeah, well, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, eventually, hey, did you find out how much a Narcan was?
So just looking up at some prices here, if you can even go online on GoodRx and it gives you a list of prices. They sell them in 1-pack, 2-pack, but it ranges from $50 to $100 is what I'm getting here.
So, that's actually a great question. So $50 to $100 for a Narcan, I would guess I don't know if insurance would pay for it or not. I see shaking heads, doctor, maybe? Yeah. But, if you didn't, $50 to $100, would it be worth keeping one in your car? Yeah, probably. Would it be worth giving your kid one? I mean, would they carry it around? You would hope they would. I don't know if they would. Maybe carry it in their backpack or, fanny packs are making a comeback. Maybe you carry it in your fanny pack. No, that's a great question.
So I don't know how they did it, but I know DHS, Department of Health Services, has handed out over 50,000 Narcan bottles in like Skid Row areas. They even hand them out to dudes coming out of jail. So I don't see why they can't give them to kids on the street.
And that is what department?
DHS.
Department of Human Services.
Health Services, yeah.
Health Services?
Yeah, they've handed out over 50,000 of them to Skid Row, so.
Okay, so we'll connect afterwards and we'll see if.
No, that's just from my personal knowledge. I don't know how they did it,
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, there's got to be entities out there that are giving them away for free, but it sounds like even if it's not free, it's relatively low cost.
Captain,
Yeah.
my name's Jeffrey Malik. I'm a candidate for city council, and in a lot of the forums and debates that we're having right now, this is one of the main questions that we're being asked. How do we stop the sale of it? Like, what is our proposal? So this is a completely honest question. Right now in our community, we have, I believe it's Ordinance 1612, that is the ban of the sale and delivery of cannabis within our community. And I think, Carrie, you were touching on this a little bit. Do we feel that if there was a removal of that ban, would that help us monitor some drugs, the sale of those drugs within our community, so that they're not being bought on the black market versus then being regulated and controlled?
And your question, Mr. Malik, would be whether or not I think it would be proper to deliver marijuana so it could be better regulated?
No. So right now, they're with the ban of the cannabis within our community. Some of the community members feels like that has opened more of the black market. So do we feel that removing that ban would lessen those buying on the black market, or it's a pointless thing?
Well, I mean, my personal opinion is I wouldn't want it sold either at all. I wouldn't want it sold at a store, and I wouldn't want it sold in delivery, because although there may be legitimate places to get it and legitimate marijuana, just from law enforcement point of view, the fear is that at some point during production, distribution, sales, it could either accidentally or on purpose, be laced with fentanyl. So me personally, I wouldn't want that. But great question. Thank you for that.
My question is, where can we take our children if we feel that they are, in order to save their lives, where can we take them to be tested for fentanyl or any other drugs? Or if we can't literally take them, can we, for example, call the sheriff's station and have one of the officers take them to get tested on purpose of saving their lives?
Great question. Can any of you guys tackle that one?
Yes, so Carrie, is that something that you could do? Okay.
I think everyone knows who drove past us. We're on Soledad Canyon. It's action. We will test any of your children anytime, and we won't charge. And we will test for fentanyl, too. So I just want to say one more thing. Marijuana is not a rite of passage anymore. In the last year, I've put more adolescents and young adults in psych hospitals because of the high-grade THC, so please be aware.
I'll follow up with Carrie on that. So we cannot, as a sheriff's department or any police officer, we can't, if you call our station, say, hey, I think my kid's using, come to the house, I can't physically remove him from your house, to take him to be tested. I wouldn't even have a way to test them. The only way that they're going to be tested is if they're involved in some sort of medical emergency of some sort, and we have to escort them to the hospital. Of course, the hospital is going to do an assessment on them and test them. But beyond that, they would have to be willing to go, and we don't physically do the test at the Sheriff's Department. You'd have to go to a private entity. Action and Cary would be our closest bet right there on Soledad, right? Just east of the junction there. So thank you. Great question. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Are there canines that can go to the schools and sniff out the students or their lockers?
Okay, great question. Hart School District. So everybody knows we have 5 school districts in Santa Clarita. Hart is one of them. And I believe they just started with a canine. Want to touch upon that?
Yeah, right now they're weapon canines though. They don't have currently any, and our department it's a issue for just protection for the kids, not having dogs that could potentially bite a kid. So we're being extra cautious, and that's why we're not having them on campus right now.
We used to have drug dogs when I was on the school board.
How many years ago did they stop?
They stopped probably about 6, 7 years ago.
Interesting. So it sounds like, ma'am, it sounds like that there may have been, or there was canines. Were those drug canines? Drug canines, they stopped at 6 or 7 years ago. Recently, to Sergeant Moreno's point, they have a weapon canine now. Your question is a drug canines. Our department's got drug canines. We do use them, but we use them in a law enforcement capacity, on traffic stops, on search warrants, things of that nature. We don't have them in the schools, though, at this point. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Well, that's a good point, too. Yeah, so with no lockers, that's probably where most of the canines would get put to work, would be along the student lockers.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick because I see lots of hands going up on this. Part of it, too, is the amount of strain. A dog can only sniff for so long and for so much, and for an entire school parking lot, an entire campus, it's no longer going to be effective as you would think it would be because the dog just physically can't manage all that. So in a perfect world, if we get a perfect dog that could run for 6 hours, it'd be great, but it's just not a reality.
Okay, any other questions before we wrap it up? Anything at all? Oh, I see Cynthia over there. So I want to draw everybody's attention to all our resources back there. And then, of course, this came up at the very beginning. We didn't have the number, but all the numbers for the Heart Students Care line is back there as well. Our drug emojis are back there. It's a fascinating document. Please look at it. In fact, when I saw it, I had never seen it before. Please go to those resources. Of course, one of the questions came up, how do we get resources if we're not here? Please call the Sheriff's Station, look up Defy and SCV, or Be the Difference, right, Cynthia? BeTheDifferenceSCV.com is another resource. So we're going to conclude if we don't have any other questions. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and taking time to join us. I know it's late. I urge you to please take everything you have heard tonight and talk to your child about the consequences of drug abuse. I'd also like to thank all the vendors who participated in our resource fair tonight. And thank you to all our speakers. You guys did a great job, very informative, gave us a lot of insight on what's going on in Santa Clarita and our schools and our streets. And of course, we talked about our handouts on the back table. And then last thing, I just mentioned it, but for more parent engagement workshops and resources, please visit Defy, that's DFY in SCV.com /parent engagement. And that's it. Thank you to everybody. Have a good night.